Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're going to set this Yevamos daf Kuf Gimel. We are going to begin on Kuf Gimel Amud Aleph, 6 lines from the top. Kav hakiteya. If a person has an amputated leg, so money, Rab Meir, we say that this whole din has to do with the Shita Rab Meir. The Tanan, we learn Masechtas Shabbos, Hakiteya Yaitz B'Kav Shaloi. That if you have an amputated individual, they can go out with their prosthetic, and that's not considered to be an issue of Hotzah on Shabbos. Divi Rab Meir, Rab Yossi Oiser. However, Rab Yossi felt that this is not allowed, and one is not allowed to go out with a prosthetic. And then it says as follows: Ban pilya shel beged atan rabbanan. When it comes to then pilya shel beged, which we translate as a sock, which is of cloth, so l'chayra, that sounds like it's in accordance to the rabbanan. Says Rashi, the tani seifa chalitzasa psula. So we said that using that for chalitza is possible. Atayinu rabbanan, the pligi alehed Rameir, because he argues with Rameir. Bikav hakiteya. Alma, what do we see? Deloi havi minal. That's not considered to be like a shoe. Dira Meir kivan dekav hakiteya havinal. Since he says that a person can go out with an amputated, with a prosthetic, and that's not considered to be an issue, that's considered like a shoe. Alma va'anal chech tachash lodayik, and a pilyanami to having noil. And therefore, it shouldn't really make any distinction whether it's necessary for it to be specifically of leather. Anything that's considered to be a null should suffice. So therefore, l'chayra, this is in accordance to according to Rabbanan, that says the ampalia shel beged cannot be used. So Amar Abayim b'desefer Rabbanan reishanam Rabbanan. The fact that the seifa must be like the sheet of Rabbanan, so too the reisha of our Mishnah also must be like the sheet of the Rabbanan. Says Rashi, reisha de kav hakiteya nami Rabbanan, v'daiki v'nal tachesh. It has to be of leather. Tani kav hakiteya kosher b'mechupa or. So Bereisha's, the Gemara continues, is b'mechupa or. So the fact that it's necessary that it has to be of leather. So how do we understand the Reisha? It's talking about that the amputated artificial leg is actually of leather, and therefore that's the reason why it's considered to be acceptable, and the person is able to go out with it on Shabbos, and that type of a shoe counts for chalitza. However, if it would be out of beged, then not. So Omer le Rava, ein mechupa or my posel. So what are you telling me? That it's all totally if it's made out of leather, otherwise it's posel. Zihachad a tiny seifa. Ban pilya shel beged. Why are you using the case of this sock? Livlik b'dida. Use the exact same case and say like this: b'medibar morin b'mechupa or. Only if it's covered with leather. Ein mechupa or posel. Keep it simple. The fact that it doesn't say it that way must be that's not what the halacha is. That's not what we're talking about. Al Omer Rabbam say it differently. But Reisha Rab Meir, Seifa Nami Rab Meir. So what's the problem when it comes to using this on Pilya Shel Beged? Because Hai Megan B'Hai Lo Megan. Because one protects the foot and one doesn't. And therefore, that's the reason why our Mishnah says in the Seifa that this sock is not acceptable, because it doesn't protect. Amar Meimer. Haiman decholitz, a person that engages in the act of chalitza, sarech lemid chase lekare. He needs to press it down onto the floor. Says Rashi, sharago hofuch the doires be'el yoina shel regel. That he needs to actually put down his foot so it's the tip of the front of the shoe. Amalei Rav Ashi Lamemer Vasanya ben Omed ben Yoshe ben Muta. So why are we telling me that it has to be done in this precise way? You're holding the way your shoe is and your foot is being angled outward. The truth is, you could even be standing. You could obviously not have your foot outward in that way or pressing down on the floor. So Ema ul oilam dedoches likare. Rather, what you're supposed to say is that it's always supposed to be pressed down. Haiman Demaske al lichata dekare, a person who is walking with his ankles, lo cholitz. That action he should not be doing chalitza. So Rav Ashel Ameimer Basanya smuchos haraglayim. If you have the smuchos haraglayim, olav the cholitz be'ihu. So not that he's the one that does the chalitza. Where it says lo, the yoyev le la'acher, give it to someone else the cholitz, and they do chalitza. Says Rashi. What is this question? My love the cholitz behu ihu hagoyres ragl. If you're dragging your foot. Veheim akumim la'acher sharaglo yeshara. Actually, you're supposed to have a straight foot. Amar Vashilamai dikamra meimar lav bar uva cholitz v'la bar kipof cholitz. So he says that what he said is bar uva u bar kipof. Rashi says this is based in a Gemara Moed Katan. The achlo shulu daited Ravashi. It says he felt bad. His hapuch karayhu, like he turned his foot around. Min harkuva mata. So he said it's totally, when it comes to the amputation, whether or not it's from the arkuva above or below, whether one could actually do chalitza with such a foot. So minhi reglayim prat l'bali kabin. The question is, when it comes to being oil regel, says Rashi, you're potter from being oil regel as soon as you're bali kavin, even if only you're missing from the bottom of the foot. So why does our Mishnah differ when it comes to our requirement for chalitza? It should be the same din, that even if you're just missing the bottom of the foot, maybe that should already be enough that we should say you can't do chalitza. So shani hachad iksiv ma'al ragloi. So it says mi'al raglo. It's mashma, says Rashi, medavar shehu al raglo midloksiv v'choltzu nalo miragloi. So it's mashma that even if it's further up on the leg is amputated, you could still do chalitza. Ihachi lomal min arkuva nami. So why don't we say, even if it's above, let's say the knee, you should also be able to do chalitza. So mi'al v'lo mi'al dema'al. So it says above, but not like basically way above. So Amar Papa Shema Mina, so we can learn from here. Hi is Tavira. This person who has regarding this long bone, says Rashi, in Masnisin to come machshir min harkuva amata ad ara noches, until the ground it is resting, says Rashi. Ve'in oid perk acher lamata himenu be'ekev. There's like no other bone below it's connected to the ankle. So you have this very long bone connecting from your ankle to the knee. If you want to tell me it's like an anatomy class that there's like some separation, you would actually say that from the knee, that joint already is already considered too high up, and therefore it must be a raya that the bone is one straight long bone. Even if, let's say, there is some separation, anything that is like toward the ground is considered like part of the ground. In other words, even if, let's say, it's true that there's maybe more than this, there's some hesek between, but the reality is we will still say that the din of chalitza is min harkuva l'mata. Min harkuva l'mala, then is posel. So Meisef Rav Kahana, the pasuk says, v'shil yasa, regarding the fetus, hayotzis mebein ragleha, that goes out between the legs. So Rashi says, alma yerichayim nami mikra regel. So we see even the yerichayim is the loins, that area is still considered to be ragleha. It says mebein ragleha, between your legs. So why are we saying this stringency that it's not a good chalitza? L'chor should still be good chalitza. So Rabbi b'shah shekairas leiled no etzes ekeveha b'yarchoseha b'yoledes. It just means that when a woman gives birth, the heel is by her thigh, and when she gives birth. In other words, because her it's necessary for her to be able to be in this physical position where her legs are separated more in order for the baby to be able to come out. That's why it's called that. But typically, that's not how we define the area of what is considered to be up to the legs. Tashma. Well, also raglav loy also safasai, safamai. Lishnamalia. So he says like this. This is Rashi. Lo also raglav lo heser seir zakin hatachtain. It says a person should not remove the hairs from below, and this is considered to be a lishnamalia. Tashma v'yavo sha'oil hasech es raglav. Lishnamalia. Again, this is a lishnamalia. It's saying it in a nicer language. Tashma ach mesich hu raglav b'chadar Hamakera. So again, Lishna Malia. Says Rashi, what is this? Me regalayim. Al mirichaim regel mikri. It's talking about the utilization of going to the bathroom, and it's still considered to be regalayim. So again, it's just Lishna Malia. It's a nice way of saying it. Lishna Malia ben ragleha hu. Lishna Malia. That's what we keep saying. In all these different languages, it's just a nicer way of saying it. Okay. Omer Rav Yochanan, Sheva B'ilois Baal Oisa Rasha. Regarding Sisra, he actually was boil 7 beers. Says Rashi, Bein Ragleha Bein Yerechoseha Shebahala Sisra Nischavona Kedei Leagiyai. So the whole purpose of having tashmish with Sisra 7 times is in order for him to become weakened. But Oisa Hayoim, on that particular day. Shnemer ben ragleha kara nafal shachav ben ragleha. Kara nafal ba'asher kara sham nafal shadud. So because, and Rashi says, kara nafal shachav shiva ksive b'kra. It says it 7 times in the pasuk. Again, is to indicate that she was boiled 7 times with him in order that Sisera should become weak, which was enable for her Yael to be able to kill him. How is she able to do this? She's getting hana from Avera. All the good, literally, of the wicked, as we continue to Kuf Gimel Mebez, Rahi Eitzot Tzadikim, is considered to be bad by the righteous. Shnemar Hishamucha Pen Tedaber Im Yaakov Mitoiv Ad Ra. So Bishlama Ra, I can understand the bad. L'chai, that makes sense. Says Rashi, Shesainim Harashayim, that there's a wickedness, which is the hatred of the wickedness, but Kotza Nefesh Sadik Behenasam, and there's a despise the fact that they get Hana. Hilka Chulav Hanahi, the fact that when it comes to a Rasha, he does the Kol Tavasan Shorashayim, even when they do something good, it's also Ra. So therefore, there's really it's not considered hana, because they never have good intentions. That's why it says in Bereshis, again, Hishamocha pen tedabrim Yaakov, you should, speaking with Yaakov, mitov ad ra, good or bad. Now, Bishlam ra l'chai, I understand bad, because we're dealing with a Rasha. El toiv amai, what's the good? Amai lo, why not? El shemamina, toivasan shorashayim, rahi eitzot tzadikim. Even having something good by the Rasha is actually bad. Look at this Taisus over here in the bottom of Kuf Gimel Manala. Hakamachani mi'avera leika memer de parich amaylo masra nafsha shahari karka olamhi. So we know, like when it comes to Esther Hamalka, Taisus says that she was a karka olam, and therefore it's not considered to be an issue. And then Taisus also says shahayin nehenos min abiyah. So the truth is that there was no hana for her. It was not something which she derived any pleasure, because when it comes to even the good, seemingly when someone who's a Rasha does something seemingly beneficial or good for you, the truth is it's also bad. It's not something which you want to have any connection to, and therefore she didn't do anything wrong as far as her getting hana from this. Now Bishlam Hasam, I can understand over there, Dilma Madkirle Shemadivotis Kachavim. Maybe he'd recognize the idol worship. Says Rashi, Lam Ganaftes Elohoi. When it came to Yaakov speaking about the taking of the idols, that Rachel took the idols, so I can understand that maybe he'll recognize that the idols were taken. So Elohacha my ra'ika. What is the bad over here? That in the case of Sisera, the answer is the kashadibe zuhama. that literally he threw filth. That when the Nachash came upon Chava, so there was zuhama, there was this filth that was placed upon her. Yisrael she'amdu al Har Sinai. However, on the opposite, we stood by Har Sinai. Paska zuhumasan, the zahuma of the Nachash was removed. But since the Umas Olam did not receive the Torah, so therefore that was not relieved from them. Then the Gemara says as follows: So what's the din when it comes to chalitza with a shoe which is not yours? So Tanaban, nolu ainli ela noli. I only know if it's your shoe. The question is, no shel kol adam minayin. How do you know you can actually use someone else's shoe? Talmud lo yomer nal mikol makom. It means any shoe. So im kain ma Talmud lo yomer nalo. So nalo haroy lo. There should be a shoe that's fit for you. Prat legadol shein yochel halach boy. Not if it's such a large shoe that you can't walk with it. Or prat lekatan sheinu chayfa rov ragloy. Or let's say it's a small shoe that it's so undersized that you cannot actually put the majority of your foot into it. Uprat l'sadol hamesuloyim. Also, when it comes to this other type of shoe, Rashi says hanifchas she'en lo ekev. It has no heel. Rashi also says l'shon achrina al shem kaimai nikr mesuloyim. Just the name of the city that they make these types of shoes. She'en lo ekev, that don't have a heel. Abaye habi koi kamedu Rav Yosef. Asi Yevamot lachleit. So it was a woman that was supposed to do chalitza. Sarmalei havlech sandalach. He said, give me your shoe. So Yoevle sandala de smola. So he gave the left shoe, and he put the left shoe, and he put it on the right foot. When did we say that you could use someone else's shoe? That's only b'diavad. L'chatchila miyamar. Did we actually say that l'chatchila you could do so? No. L'chatchila should be your own shoe. B'diavad, if you use someone else's shoe, then you're yaitza. Armali hachi sandal sheno shaloi nami. So right, Eimer di amar rabbanan diavad l'chatchila miyamar. Armali hachi kaminalach havlech v'achnile. That he should give me the shoe, and I will be kind it. Fine. So look in Rashi, shehe shalo b'matana, that the shoe should be mine through the means of a gift. So let's move on to question TB 27. Ha'im nal hachalitza srichel yois shel hayavam. Does the shoe actually l'chatchila need to belong to the yavam? And this is what he says: l'chatchila sarch shehei hanal shalo. The l'chatchila needs to be your shoe. However, b'diavad kosher. If not, then it's still kosher. That was TB 27. Okay. All right. Weiter. Sandal shel eitz. So you have a shoe made out of wood, not of leather. So Mantana, Somer Shmuel, Rameir, he did not. Hakiteya yoitze b'kav shaloi. The Rameir says that you could have this amputee go out with his prosthetic. Rabbi Yosi Oyser. So Avodah Shmuel Omer Noma Mechupa or B'divrei Kol. We're actually talking about not out of eitz, but rather we're talking about the shoe was made out of leather, and that is L'divrei Kol. Amar Papi Mishmei de Rava. Sandal hamusur hamusker l'tachlitz bo. If you have a sandal in which had saras on it, l'chatchila we do not let you use it. However, if you did use such a shoe, so then it is considered to be kosher. Says Rashi, sheparchu bo hatsaras, that saras was on it. L'tachlitz bo mini hasgero l'asla mevid b'muchlat. You're not allowed to use it when it's muchlat. So therefore, it's almost like a zera that we don't want you to use it while it's musker because you may use it muchlat. And if you did it while it was muchlat, then definitely it's not even good, even b'diavad. However, a papa mishmei Rabbi Omer echad sandal hamusker echad sandal muchlat l'tachlitz bo v'imcholza hachalitza sakshera. It's actually a machlokas when it comes to a sandal hamuchlat. The din is that b'diavad you could use it. So again, it's a machlokas. When it comes to a sandal hamuchot, whether a person is allowed to use such a shoe. Says Rashi, why would you maybe think you can't use a sandal muchot? The l'sreifakoi, because it's supposed to be burnt. Yanan shira bi'ina chayfes rav ragul has to cover the majority of your foot. B'hai ksusi mechta shire, and it's considered to be like missing a that minor measurement because it's considered to be like completely destroyed. So therefore, that's why it is a problem. Okay. So this is a case. Fine. This is in fact question 10c, which asks this question: what's the din when it comes to a sandal hamusker? So this is how he says over here. He says, as pashut, it is kosher. Okay. All right. Meisvei bayis hamusker. Let's say you have a house that's closed up. Metami bit mitoicho. It's metami everything inside of it. If it's muchlat, mitoicho machorov. What's on the inside in behind it, outside of it. Zevzem matamin babia. And both of them, if a person goes into these houses, it's matamin. Kid michtas dami, that the house is considered like it's completely burnt down. It's like it doesn't exist because it's a sreifakoi v'habi'inan v'haboel ba'asaleka. So then you're not going into a house. It's like you're going into air. So where's the shani hasam diamakra v'notzat tzatzabayas? I feel b'shas netzitza kori bias. Even at the time that it's supposed to be destroyed, it's still called a house. And therefore, Indian bia that your tami babia, you're still by entering derech bia, since that is the norm of how to do it. You're gonna actually things will become tummy that way. Toshma matlish sheish b'shalosh al shalosh. Let's say you have a beged which has saras, which is 3 by 3. Rashi says havi beged chazilanium. It's enough that's fit for the poor. So afal pish in bo kazayas, even though it doesn't have a kazayas, Rashi says shechuta dak. It's very thin material. Nonetheless, shenichnas rubel abayas tahar. If the majority of it went into that house, it's tahar. Mitumas metamoy. Maila muchletas. We're talking about this garment is muchlet. Lo muskeres. Yehachi emaseifa. Hayubo kamazesim. Let's say it's very large, holds many zesim. Kivan shenichnas mimenu kazayas labayas tahar mitamohi. It'll be tahar from becoming tame. Yamar bishlam muchletas. Hainu diskish lames. No yarmit muskeres amayiska shalmes. So shani hasam diamakra v'sarf es a beged. A feel b'shas sreifa kari beged. Again, even when you're burning, it's still considered to be a beged. So v'ligmer mine, says Rashi, v'inyan chalitza v'yoyis choshev shalim. Why don't we say when it comes to chalitza that it's also considered to be choshev, just like entering a house? Or the beged is considered, even though it's burned, it's ki'ilu like it's there. So why don't you say the same thing when it comes to chalitza? Here it says, no. Isser matuma lo gamrina. When it comes to tuma, fine. We can say it's tuma. But when it comes to an isser, whether something is going to work or not much we don't do. Says Rashi, shehilchas tuma chidashu. Amar Rava, hilchasa echad sandal hamusker, ve'echad sandal hamuchlat, ve'echad sandal shel avodas kachavim, lo tachleitz, v'imchot zachlitza sakshera. However, if a person does do any of these things, it is kosher, even if it's a avodas kachavim. Why? So the reason why it's kosher, Rashi says, muchlad kedarman, she'afil b'shas sreifa kori beged, because it's still considered to be a beged. V'shel avodas kachavim nami, says Rashi, de'islei tekanta bebittel, because you can always mavatal it. V'im mishum iser hana chalitza lav hanahi. The mitzvah lav hinan lihanis himenu. We're not supposed to get hana. We don't get hana from doing a mitzvah. So therefore, technically, you could use it even though it's shel avodas kachavim, even though you're not supposed to get hana from it. There's no din of hana when it comes to mitzvahs. However, shel takorevis avodas kachavim, in which that's already supposed to be completely burnt. As Rashi says, ein lo bittul alamas you can't be mavatal it because the shoe was already used for avodah zara. So shatakrevis avodah chachavim, as we continue to kuf dalad amud aleph, v'shel ir hanidachas, or a city in which again everything is supposed to be destroyed and burned. V'shel zakin ha'os lechvaydai. Also, an old shoe, old man's shoe, which is lechvoida. Rashi says l'tachrichi misa, that they actually used to have shoes for people who, for shrouds. It says Rashi hoyav lav lehalicha avid lavnalhu. That's not a shoe because it's not used for walking, because it's for the dead. That's the reason why it's even b'diavad doesn't work. We said it's not for walking. So the beidina nami lav halicha avid. Why don't we say the beidina? It says Rashi, sandal shahil lebeistin umiyuchan lechalitza. When it comes to an actual sandal which is designated for the use of chalitza, no one actually goes for a nice stroll with them. So that shouldn't be allowed either. So ilu maski be shlucha de beidina mikapdele dayana. So if, let's say, the Beis Din basically gives permission to this guy to put it on, then it's okay. However, so even though it's true, it's really miyuchid for the chalitza, but it is a shoe for walking. However, when it comes to this other individual, it's not something which is specifically, it's not for walking because it's for the mace. And that's the reason why it will not work at all. Okay, let's see a couple more questions. We're going to stop there by the Mishnah. So let's see TA 26. Be'ez oifen bias hamanoiga matama b'maga. So it says like this: in which situation is a beis hamanoiga matama b'maga? So it depends. If we're dealing with a musker, then it's b'toichai, for anything inside. Muchlat af miacharav, also that which is outside of it. Okay, now let's finish up this question, which is 10. When are these chalitzas allowed? Chalitzas sandal shel small merago hayamonis. Can you take a left shoe and put it on the right foot? So the answer is that is kosher. What is the din of a sandal sha'ul, a borrowed shoe? So that is also kosher. What is the din when it comes to a sandal shel avodas kachavim? So as we said, it's kosher. It can't be takroivus avodas kachavim, but avodas kachavim is kosher. And sandal hamusker is also kshera. So all of these cases end up being kosher, every single one of them. Okay, ad kan.